2024, the final day of the first quarter of 2024, and happy Easter, and welcome back to LCJ Live. We were off last Sunday because of New York State's Frozen Empire, as Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was the #1 movie at the box office last weekend. So we're back. Happy Easter. I've got a bunch of pals here with me, and it's another cool day in the movie history world. Why a certain Keanu Reeves character's there. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. We've got box office results, a gigantic weekend for Godzilla X Kong, or is it just called Godzilla Kong? Is the X silent? A lot happening. We'll get to all of it. And if you're watching on YouTube Live, thank you, appreciate it. And for the first time on YouTube Live, we're going horizontal today with LCJ Live, trying something a little new. And I've got my monitor here with me. And all right, it's looking pretty good. Back it up a little bit, and we could get all of the characters in it. Working with my producer here now. We're going to back up a little bit to get some more of the characters. We're just checking things out. Yeah, and I'll hold up some more of the characters. That looks pretty good. I like that. It looks nice in horizontal. If you like it in horizontal, let me know here in the comments. It's looking good. And send in your questions and your comments. Your #1 movie on this Easter Sunday is Godzilla Kong, The New Empire, with $80 million. And that is a huge open. That is a much bigger open than expected. I mean, I was thinking 55, 60, maybe 65. People were thinking, wow, $80 million. That is more than double of what Godzilla vs. Kong opened to 3 years ago. But of course, Godzilla vs. Kong also had a simultaneous debut on HBO Max. And so that was a $32.2 million opening weekend, a $100 million theatrical gross, which was one of the highest grosses for any movie at that time. You had that. You had Cruella didn't even make that much money. A Quiet Place Part 2. You had a few movies. And then you had F9 and some others. Black Widow came out pretty soon after that. That were getting to that $100 million mark. But Godzilla vs. Kong was one of the first. And now look at this. Already $80 million for Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. That is really, really strong for a movie that I wish was a lot stronger than it is. I had so much fun with Godzilla vs. Kong 3 years ago. And I wanted that same fun here. And there are some sections in the second half that give you that. But as I walked out of the movie the other night, I go, that wasn't enough for me. Yeah, there are a couple surprises and some decent fights, but the rest of it is lazy, uninspired, not funny, not entertaining, copycats of the MCU. We've got this MonsterVerse here now, the 5th movie, and it just didn't do enough for me. I wish Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire was more interesting, more exciting. Not a lot there. And we don't care about the humans, unlike with Godzilla -1, with its Oscar-winning visuals and a story and characters you really invest yourselves in. So, too bad, unfortunately, that Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire just doesn't do it. But, in terms of the box office, it does. The question will be how well it will do as kids are off of school this week in many parts of the country. And over the next several weeks throughout the month of April, you've got some interesting movies for April before we get into the summer season, like Monkey Man, First Omen. They're out next week. We got a few others, Abigail and Gentlemanly Warfare, which is coming out from Guy Ritchie, and a few other films, Challengers. So April will be interesting. I don't think we'll get a gigantic movie like this again until at least May. May's looking good. Fall Guy, Planet of the Apes. We'll see how If does. Garfield, I think, is going to be a gigantic hit, and Furiosa. So we got some big May movies. There's a few others as well. But when it comes to this weekend, this Easter weekend, remember last year we had Mario dominating the box office. Did what, 200 million in 5 days? Insane. Yeah, this is not going to do 200 million in 5 days, but 80 million? This MonsterVerse will continue going for Warner Brothers. There is no question about that. Ghostbusters had a big drop, though, about 65%. Down to 15.7 million this weekend after 45 million last weekend. It's at 73.4. Now Sony is holding their breath because they're thinking, okay, kids are out of school this week, so maybe we get some box office for Ghostbusters. By the way, this shirt came from the 2016 reboot, which I like. I like the 2016 reboot from Paul Feig with the ladies leading the way. And it's better than these last two we've had from Jason Reitman, either as writer or director, and this team with bringing back the OG cast in those roles. Look, these last two just haven't done anything for me either. Not fun, not entertaining. boring, same old, slow. This one was really slow, Frozen Empire. And I had a feeling that audiences were not really going to be interested in seeing this a second time, so that's why you got that 65% drop this weekend. Now, you do have a little bit of a lack of family competition between now and If and Garfield in mid to late May. So could some families still go see Ghostbusters over the next 6-7 weeks? Yes. Same with Kung Fu Panda 4. There were even kids at the showing of Godzilla Kong I went to the other night. So families could still give these movies a little bit of money, but I still think Ghostbusters at this point, with this big of a drop, is going to struggle to get to that 130 million mark that Sony wants. After the 2016 movie made 128 and the 2021 film Afterlife made 129. Now they're thinking, oh gosh, we may not get to 130. Heck, could we even not get to 100? They got to get it to 100, but it might be a bit more of a struggle now. Third place this weekend goes to Dune Part 2 with another 11.1 million. It's at 252.4. It is at 600 million globally. Happy Easter, Jackson says. Olive Olivia, happy Easter to you as well. Let me tell you about some of my Easter pals. Sponge Bunny is here with me, along with the Mater Egg and Snoopy and Woodstock. And guess what today is as well? Thank you to Jake Hamilton for posting this. Neo, Keanu Reeves, The Matrix, March 31st, 1999, 25 years ago today, the premiere of The Matrix. What a franchise. You're talking about a movie that won, I think, 4 Oscars, and then you had 2 follow-ups come out in the same calendar year. That's wild. 2 Matrix movies in the same calendar year. And guess what Warner Brothers is doing this year? Those 2 Kevin Costner Horizon movies within a 2-month period. Warner Brothers going back down that path of 2 in the same calendar year. And then you had Matrix Resurrections in 2021, which I thought was a brilliant movie. Unbelievable that it got snubbed for Best Visual Effects nomination at the Oscars. And it just, I think it brings the emotion, especially that final act, that you want from those characters in this saga. It twisted things up. Yes, it was different than what the other 3 gave you, but it was cool. It was unique. It was interesting. It was compelling. And emotionally satisfying for diehard fans of the franchise. I like all 3 Matrix movies. Yeah, the second one's probably the worst, but I like the third one, and I like the fourth one, and I really like the first one. I really like the fourth one too. As I posted a couple years ago, I think people are going to look back a decade from now 8 years from now, and kind of go, oh man, we were wrong about Matrix Resurrections. It's really good. To all the people who said it's terrible. It's not terrible. It's very good. Ralphie Nugget, why aren't there that many Easter movies? That's an interesting question. And speaking of Easter movies, Hop is on the CW tonight. I believe it's 7 o'clock Eastern. So if you haven't seen Hop or you got the family, watch Illumination's second movie ever. 2011's Hop is on the CW tonight at 7 o'clock. Why aren't there that many Easter movies? Well, with the Easter Bunny, I mean, you've also got Rise of the Guardians, which came out in 2012 with Hugh Jackman as the Easter Bunny. I don't know. I think if you want to make a holiday movie, I guess studios like to look at Christmas first and then maybe Halloween, especially in the horror department, and look at those. And Easter, you know, maybe we'll get some more. Maybe we'll get some more family movies. There's been a lot of holiday specials, as we see here with SpongeBob and the Peanuts over the years. But we've had a few in recent years, but not quite as many as some of the other holidays. Number 4 for the weekend is Kung Fu Panda 4, which added 10.2 million. You're watching LCJ Live right here, right now, Easter Sunday show, and Kung Fu Panda 4 is up to 151.7 million. It has passed the domestic gross of Kung Fu Panda 3. Now, it needs to get to 166 to pass the domestic gross of Kung Fu Panda 2, which I think it will do. It will happen probably in the next 2 weeks, maybe sooner. That's really strong for DreamWorks and Universal. Now, the original in 2008 made 215. I don't see that happening for this, but I really think we're going to get a Kung Fu Panda 5 because of the success of this. Question is, if they put out a Kung Fu Panda 5 in 3 to 4 years versus the 8 years of the gap between 3 and 4, are people going to be as excited? I will say this about Kung Fu Panda 4. It does not have the strength of the original. And I'm not quite sure at this point, after watching Kung Fu Panda 4, which I like the Tai Lung aspects of it especially, if DreamWorks is going to be able to top the first. I wasn't a huge fan of Kung Fu Panda 2. I liked it, but didn't love it. I liked Kung Fu Panda 3 more. This one is okay, but I'm not quite sure at this point if we get a Kung Fu Panda 5 if it's going to match the original, which I still think is the best animated movie of 2008, over Wall-E, which I'm not a huge fan of Wall-E. Bolt is a very close second. Also love The Tale of Despero from 2008. 2008 was a good year for animation. Space Chimps I also think was fun. There's a couple other animated movies I'm missing. Madagascar 2 was a disappointment, but there are a few other animated movies. I'm missing something, I think. But I think Kung Fu Panda 5, hopefully it comes close to matching the first one, because I don't think Kung Fu Panda 4 quite comes close to matching the impact of the first one. 3.3 million more for Immaculate. It's at 11.1. It's in the top 5 of all time for Neon. I'm pretty confident it's in the top 5. I was looking at this earlier because it passed Apollo 11, and yeah, it's number 5 right now. Number 4 is Three Identical Strangers, which made 12.8 million, so I think Immaculate's going to pass that. Then it gets interesting because you had Ferrari, which totaled 18.5 million over Christmas to New Year's and when it was in theaters. And at this point, at 3.3 million this weekend for Immaculate, I don't know if it's going to pass that 18.5 of Ferrari. It probably won't. So therefore, Immaculate will stay at number 4. Still, though, impressive. Biggest opening weekend ever for Neon at 5.4 million. And the 4th biggest movie for them ever, Ferrari, which just came out, number 3. And number 2, I, Tonya, with 30 million. And number 1, Parasite, with 53.4 million. Ralphie Nugget, what's wrong with Wall-E? Listen, I don't hate Wall-E. It is one of my least favorite Pixar movies. I don't hate it. I just think it doesn't succeed quite as much as Andrew Stanton intended. I don't think it's quite as much of an emotional romance powerhouse as people think it is. You want a good romance powerhouse from Pixar? Watch Elemental. To me, Wade and Ember, much stronger couple than Wall-E and Eve. And, you know, it's not just the dialogue versus no dialogue, it's the emotional connection. And Wall-E, I think, forces that emotional connection on us. It forces a lot. It shoves a lot down our throats about messaging, the environment, all of that. There's nothing subtle about Wall-E. And I have a problem with that. Elemental, when I went to Pixar, by the way, I was at Pixar the other day. I'll talk about that in a minute. When I went to Pixar last year and saw I saw like 25 minutes of footage of Elemental. And there was a section in that footage of Wade and Ember going on a date day. They went to several locations, meeting up with each other. And I thought, this is good. This is a good section. And there was that song behind it, Steal the Show, that's really good. Should have been up for the Oscar for song. And I go, there's something here. Out of all the footage I saw in that 25 minutes, I go, here's where the movie thrives the best. It's us connecting to Wade and Ember and them connecting to each other. And thank God that's the majority of Elemental. Otherwise, the film does not succeed nearly as well. If you don't have that, if you don't focus almost completely on the two of them, which they do, and stay with them the entire time and see that relationship form and blossom, that is the strength of Elemental and makes them one of the best couples ever in a Disney animated movie. I mean, put them up there with Belle and the Beast, put them up there with Jack and Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas, and Wade and Ember. To me, I say those are the 3 best couples in any Disney or Pixar animated film. Wall-E and Eve does not come close. Happy Easter! Hi, Jackson says, Big John, thank you for being here today on LCJ Live. We are at number 6 now with a film called Toulouse Square, which made $2.5 million this weekend. Number 7 this weekend at the box office is Arthur the King, which added $2.4 million. It's at 19.1 for Lionsgate. Number 8 is Late Night with the Devil, which I still want to see soon. I haven't had the chance yet. I was at Pixar this week. I want to catch up on Late Night with the Devil and a few other films. I'll talk about my Pixar experience. I saw 30 minutes of Inside Out 2. I'll tell you as much as I can, which is not a lot, but I'll tell you about my experience at Pixar and a little bit about Inside Out 2 coming up in a minute. Late Night with the Devil added $2.2 million this weekend. It's at $6.2 million total for IFC. It expanded to more theaters. Number 9 is a film called Crew, which made $1.7 million. And rounding out your top 10 this weekend is Imaginary, which I saw last Sunday When the Frozen Empire took over New York and I had no power for 31 hours and I needed something to do, I went to the movies and I saw Imaginary. I made 1.4 million this weekend. It's at 26.2 for Lionsgate. Imaginary is not that great. And by the way, if you've seen Imaginary, and I was talking with some people about this at Pixar this week, there are multiple references to Bing Bong and Inside Out in Imaginary, but the film's not very good. I thought it was going somewhere, and then it kind of falls apart, and then it falls apart again and again in that final act. Now, outside of the top 10 this weekend, new Liam Neeson movie, which I'll be checking out soon, I believe. In the Land of Saints and Sinners, which opened to 1.1 million. It's lower than even the 2 or 3 or 4 million of typical Liam Neeson movies. I don't think there was a ton of promotion behind it. I think people are now discovering that a new Liam Neeson movie is out in theaters, so maybe it'll do okay the next couple weeks and maybe get to 3 or 4 million total. Marley One Love is at 96.3 million total. Wicked Little Letters made about 100 grand. It goes wide this Friday. I like Wicked Little Letters. The dramatic aspects of it, the comedy, not so much, but the drama in the second half, pretty solid. And you've got performances by Jessie Buckley, Olivia Colman, and Timothy Spall in Wicked Little Letters. Cabrini added 1 million. It's at 18.1. By the way, Bob Marley added 435,000 to get it to that 96.3 total. Love Lies Bleeding, also outside the top 10 this weekend, added 643. It's at 7.2 million for A24. Not a complete bust, but not one of the more successful movies ever for A24. A film called Asphalt City, we don't have the money for yet. And, all right, let's mention some of the movies that are coming out this week, and then I'll talk about Pixar. The Greatest Hits, which I'm going to be watching soon, is in theaters Friday, goes to Hulu on the 12th. I'm looking forward to that. I looked a little bit at the plot, and I haven't watched the trailer. I looked at the plot, and I go, man, if this works, this is one of the kind of movies I like. That music, and it does something interesting with romance and with time and with relationships and meant to be stuff. So if this is good, I hope it's really good. I watched an animated movie last night called Chicken for Linda. This was a big winner at Annecy last year, and G-Kids is putting it out in theaters. I'm going to be having some coverage of that for AnimationScoop.com. Speaking of that, new AnimationScoop.com Q&A and LCJ Q&A podcast episode tomorrow with John Rosenbaum, the director of Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp, which is on Netflix on April 12th. For a fun April Fool's Day, zany, wacky Woody Woodpecker treat, that podcast episode and Animation Scoop Q&A will be available tomorrow. If you saw on my social media a week or so ago, yes, there is a very good chance you can hear a Woody Woodpecker sound effect in the new Mad Max movie, Furiosa, because the same sound people who worked on Woody Woodpecker worked on Furiosa, so you may hear Woody in Furiosa. The 2 big theatrical releases this week are Monkey Man, Dev Patel's film from Universal that Jordan Peele took from Netflix, gave it theatrical. That is out this weekend, along with The First Omen from 20th Century. Bill Nighy is in that. He's also in a new Netflix movie called The Beautiful Game, which I'm going to catch up on soon. And The First Omen is out from 20th Century and Disney this weekend. So those two will battle it out up against week 2 of Godzilla x Kong the New Empire. And at this point, I think Godzilla is going to win again because I don't see Monkey Man or The First Omen hitting $40 million. But unless Godzilla has a gigantic 75% drop and it goes down to 20 million, then, you know, I think Monkey Man and First Omen are not going to be number 1 next weekend. But I am going to take a look at what Box Office Pro is predicting currently. First Omen range of 8 to 13. Wow, that's low. And then Monkey Man 13 to 21. The only way Monkey Man wins, unless it does better than 21, which it could, there is some buzz for the movie for sure, but the only way it wins with 21 million is if Godzilla x Kong is a 75% drop down to $20 million. Unless Monkey Man has some strong buzz and people want to go see it right away and it hits 30 million. Then it might have a shot if people don't want to go see Godzilla Kong a second time. At this point, First Omen doesn't have a chance of winning. There have been a lot of horror movies, but I'm not sure at this point it has the buzz and the strength to be number 1. Let me take a couple moments and talk about Pixar. I got to see 30 minutes of Inside Out 2, the first 30 minutes. I cannot describe the footage. I cannot share opinion on the footage. All I will say is it was a clean 30 minutes, meaning it was the first 30 minutes pretty straight through. They had very little left to do for the first 30 minutes in terms of the work on the film itself. There were only a couple shots in that whole 30 minutes I could see where they still needed to clean up a couple things and tweak things. Otherwise, it was a straight through 30 minutes. There is some stuff you've seen in the trailers that's in the first 30 minutes, and some stuff you have not seen yet that I cannot talk about or reference at all until at least April 16, because that's when some of the stories and some of the Q&As and footage, I got to interview the director and producer on camera, and some of the Animation Scoop Q&As will be available beginning April 16, as well as May 14 and into June, heading into the release on June 14. I talked with many of the makers of the film, the cinematographer and the editor and the animation supervisors and the director and producer and some of the other great people at Pixar. It was a fun trip. We got to do some great activities, which I will also get to talk about more starting April 16. And Inside Out 2, I mean, it's got to be one of the biggest movies of the year. It's got to be. One of the most anticipated movies of the year as well, for families, for fans of the original, which came out almost 9 years ago. Pixar is hoping for big things. Elemental last summer had a slow start, under 30 million, and then it grew because of that word of mouth of how good the characters are, got it to over 150 million domestically, and an Oscar nomination for animated feature, and it made more money overseas than Spider-Verse. So we'll see how Inside Out 2 does. I believe it's number 6 on Pixar's all-time list for box office domestically and worldwide, with about 860 million worldwide. If you do adjustment for inflation and more people go, could it be a billion-dollar movie? That is the question for Inside Out 2. And again, I'll have more coverage on that and all I can share starting April 16. Thank you for being here. Happy Easter. Thanks for watching today's episode of LCJ Live. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. We do LCJ Live every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern. When we are back here next Sunday, we'll see how Monkey Man and First Omen did going up against Godzilla Kong. We'll preview the movies coming out for April 12th, including, I forgot to mention, Alex Garland's Civil War from A24, which has huge buzz behind it. We'll talk about that and more. Follow me on Twitter X at LCJ. There's an X as well. Some people are saying, is the X in the marketing for Godzilla Kong or not? The Twitter X as well at LCJ Reviews, Instagram at LightsCamJackson, and the website is lights-camera-jackson.com, lcj.podbean.com for that new Woody Woodpecker LCJ Q&A tomorrow, as well as animationscoop.com. Thank you for being here for LCJ Live. I am Lights Camera Jackson. Happy Easter, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.